how you prepared mentally, what kind of discipline you had, routines in and out of battle.
How I prepared mentally, routines in and out of battle.
Yep. What kind of discipline you had and routines in and out of battle.
I'm going to fall back on mental routine. I think is probably your biggest, because the physical one is easy. Okay, you come back. So battle doesn't mean you're in gunfights all the time. Like we say, if we're standing still, we're patrolling, right? It's just a static patrol. So you got to make sure your gear is good. You got to make are your batteries changed, right? You got there's always the checklist. As a leader, it actually makes it easier, I found, because now I have a reason to check their stuff and check that their routine. So my routine stayed solid, right? Because I had other guys I had to worry about. So rest is a big one. I used to have to order my guys to go to ground because there's only 3 of us. And I used to, Barry especially, I'd be like, Barry, you need to be useful. I need you to sleep. So my routine was like, make sure enough rest, make sure, because that the saying mission before man, sure, except when the man is the mission. So I need my man to be good.
Yeah, and I was going to say, if you abuse your man too much, you won't accomplish the mission.
Yeah,
so.
like the sacrifice the body. Well, let's wait. Let's think about that.
Because the body is what needs to get this thing done.
There's only 3 of us. And in our case, if you're a sniper, you might be alone. You might be with 1 or 2 other guys. I can't afford to have a guy run head first through a doorway to get through it, because I need him to be useful after. If you have a platoon, sure, you sacrifice Smith, he runs through the door. Hey, okay, you got 29 more guys, I can go through the door. So my routine was always like, make sure everything's topped up, keep an eye out, do the mental checklist, and then visualize. Like out of battle, I would try to, I remember I'd lay on my bunk, and I'd always end up with my right foot crossed over my left foot and my arms up here on my chest, and I'd have my head back, and I would be going, okay, we go down, and if contact left, and I would try to visualize these things, because as the team leader, I had the radio and I was security, because my boys, when they're in position, my spotter is spotting and my shooter is shooting, so they're 12 o'clock. Mm-hmm. So I'm now everything the rest of the clock for them and for myself. So I was constantly rehearsing mentally what could happen. I'm practicing a call for fire. I'm practicing calling in an airstrike. I'm practicing a 9-liner. I'm practicing just a grit. What do you guys use that term?
We use a 9-line. For
9-line is a casualty evac.
Call for fire, 9-line.
Yeah. No, but grit, like group range indication type of fire.
Yeah. Yep.
So my first, even with all the visualization, my first actual grit in a battle was bad guy over there. It's supposed to be 6'3", 300 by that tree, for effect or at your own time or something like the calm, cool, collected voice. But, the guy was like 40 meters away, and it was like, and my sniper was actually looking over him, wavy. He's like, I'm looking at that stuff, and I was like, fuck it, and I just shot him myself. But my point is that even with all that practice and visualization and training, that was my first attempt. Mm-hmm. So I was always just trying to make sure that my routine off the battlefield was putting my mind back, but in a controlled setting. Mm-hmm. And then also, like I said, make sure, okay, yeah, how much sleep did you get? Okay, good. And that's the routine that, you got to get the guys to relax. Especially, like for me, I just had to make sure, because I only had me and 2 other guys. I couldn't afford to lose one of them, whether it was to exhaustion or malnutrition or dehydration or sprained ankles or whatever. So I just did my best to keep that checklist going and visual, and I would encourage them to do the same. I'd be like, hey, what are you thinking about over there? Oh, whatever. And I'd be like, hey, why don't you think about it? Remember when you making that shot and you missed or whatever? Like, try and visualize, try and think about what you did. There's a lot of steps that go into pulling the trigger. And then just think about that. Think about how it happened and encourage that. I'm a big fan of meditation and yoga and all that stuff. Like, if any, like, I think in our side of the world, we've lost a lot of that stuff. And I know we try to get it back, and got people that do it are tree hugging, spandex wearing weirdos or whatever. But yoga and meditation and stuff, like, that's all warrior culture from the past. Like samurai meditate. Ain't warrior monks fasted and prayed. That's just meditation. And they looked inside themselves a lot to try and, a samurai's job was pretty tough. Call him a pussy for meditating. Make sure I'm there so I can watch. And I firmly believe that type of stuff keeps you functional for when you hit the battlefield. That self, as Grossman calls it, the self-reflection, self-inoculation as well. So that was my routine. It was just a constant rotation of thoughts, but the actions were always to prepare the situation for what was coming. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The one thing that that's actually a really practical thing that I did. That is I had this is just like a real practical thing. I had 2 cots, right? Slept in one cot. The other cot was all my gear. And it was just laid out, gun, body armor, everything was right there. And when I got dressed to go out, all that thing was empty. And so never forgot anything.
Nice.
When I came back, everything went right back on the cot. Same spot, everything squared away. So that to me was, and I figured that out really quickly. Okay, I don't ever want to forget anything. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put everything that I need right here.
So I didn't even think of it. Around how I said I would sit there, right foot over the left, all around me, because we had a cot. We couldn't afford 2 Canadian Army. Okay, sorry, man. But around, we all had 2x4s around us because we were in like a fob we built ourselves, and each nail had its. So I had my chest rig, my rifle, my ammo pouches, and then and then all around. But that was when I would go through my stuff. That's what I mean. Like, I would hang it up, open up the pouch. Okay, everything's there. Close it. Next pouch. Make sure top up my mags, all that stuff. And I would make sure get the guys to do the same thing.
And when you're ready to go out on operation, all your nails are empty. That means you've got everything.
Yeah. But the biggest thing with people call it routine, and they think there's magic to it. Right? There's not. It's just making sure you do the same thing over and over and over again. As magical as Navy SEALs and snipers want to be, like, it's not really that. It's not that mystical, I guess. It's just a lot of repetition. The routine is that you repeat the same actions because that's what makes you good at them.
Yeah, and I was telling you when we were driving over here at some point how we used to try and do everything.
Yeah, when you would fire
together,
up the
we'd
cars
have
together.
5 or 6 Humvees lined up for an operation. They'd all be lined up, ready to go, and then everyone would get the word. It'd be like, load them up, and then you'd just see everyone would just get in the zone. Boom, you'd see everyone get in the vehicles, and then we'd start the vehicles at the same time. There's no reason to do that.
No, but there is.
I know there is.
That's a Pavlov's dog type thing.
There's no definable reason why you would do that, but our deal was, okay, starting up in 3, 2, 1, start them. And then you hear all the vehicles start up at once. And it's just like all those little things all those little disciplines would lend themselves to the team being more disciplined.
Those ignition switches might as well have been the switch in each guy's mind.
Yep.
As that vehicle is starting, everyone's brain is going into combat mode.
And we're together.
At the same time.
We're synchronized from the word go. when that happens.
I love it. When you told me that, I was like, yeah, that'd be the most badass thing to watch. Bunch of Navy, could you imagine? Bunch of Navy SEAls load up and their vehicles all start at the same time. I'd run. I'd be like, I'm not fucking with these guys. I'm out of here.
It was an awesome sight. That when I was a task unit commander, I'd be sitting on base as guys were rolling out, and I'd stand out there and salute them just like old school, right? And it's it was.
And they loved you for it.
I love those guys, but those guys. I mean, every time you rolled out in the streets of Ramadi, there was a decent chance you were getting blown up. There was the gunfight was almost guaranteed to happen, but guys getting blown up.
IEDs was a real issue for you guys, eh?
And I was thinking about this today. The IEDs, we had statistically the most heavily IED'd road in all of Iraq was Route Michigan, going from one end of Ramadi to the other.
Yeah.
And there was IEDs all over the place. It was ridiculous. And we didn't hit any IEDs while we were there, which I was thinking about that today because I was thinking about my EOD contingent. We had 2 EOD guys, and I never told them, hey, we never had an IED. Thank you. Never told them that.
So you credit them with that?
I credit them with part of it.
Yeah.
Part of the briefings that they gave, now there was some close calls. Leif's platoon, and as a matter of fact, it's in the book, when the EOD guys were watching the front door. They couldn't quite keep an eye on it, but they did a really good inspection of it. When they came back out, they're like, something looks different. They went down there, and there's a 120 millimeter mortar IED that would have taken out, 4 or 5 guys.
Easy.
There was a time where we went over an IED. Well, the point man navigator in the vehicles was like, hey, I think there's something suspicious. Actually got out of the vehicle to look at it. We're like, looking back, what do you think about that decision-making process? Maybe that wasn't a good one. Anyways, we decided, I don't think it is. We drove over it, and about a half an hour later, the IED clearance team found a triple stack 120. So that's everybody in the vehicle dead, if you hit it. IEDs were a massive threat. The number of guys that were killed and wounded by IEDs in Ramadi was ridiculous. There was a vehicle graveyard, vehicles that had been blown up and then dragged back in it was massive. I want to say 50 to 100 vehicles are just piled up, and including MRAPs, which are the mine-resistant vehicles. Those things are in there broken in half. Yeah. What kind of bomb do you got to put together to do that? Mouge.
We got real lucky, and I know this sounds weird. My rotation, they had conventional mines. So any purse and any tank. And there was the occasional IED, but it was usually SV and in the city. SV means suicide vehicle. So our regimental sergeant major and his driver were killed by a suicide vehicle-borne IED. Yep. And I stepped on a landmine. If I'd stepped on an IED, I would have been vaporized. Mm-hmm. But the rotation that replaced us, our sister battalion, that's when the intelligence says guys from Iraq started showing up, and we went from losing a tire, maybe having one guy get killed through penetration in the hull or whatever, to we had a whole lav go up, and 7 out of the 10 guys in it were killed, and it was like that's how quickly it escalated. Yeah, and suddenly it was an issue for our guys as well. Almost every vehicle we had hit a landmine on my tour, and that was the only time I was ever really scared over there. When I was walking or in a helicopter or even out on a 4-wheeler, no problem. But when I had to drive on the roads in a vehicle, that's when I was like, the pucker factor was the highest for me ever. IEDs, man, the guys that would go out every day and deal with that shit.
Yeah, the IED clearance guys.
Fuck, man, my hat always came off to those guys.
Oh, yeah.
Talk about a nerve-wracking job.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
What's that movie with the EOD guy?
I don't know.
Hurt Locker. Yeah. Everybody who does that job says it's a total bullshit movie, but could you imagine though that's your gig?
Well, like we had embedded EOD guys with us, and SEALs usually have EOD, Navy EOD guys that are basically like platoon guys. Our guys were like they go through our training with us. They go through they don't go through the basic training, the basic SEAL training, but they go through everything else.
Yeah,
and
so
our guys
they're like supporters.
Well, once our guys were like other SEALs. You know, they were that good.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's amazing. But and the guys that are with us, and so they're not quite. It's their primary job for us, but it's not their primary job.
Right.
Whereas the guys that you're talking about, the guys that did route clearance.
Oh.
If anybody's listening to this podcast right now, and you did route clearance in Iraq or Afghanistan,
thank you.
Jocko and Jody say thank you because you saved us so many times. Because we drove down those roads all the time. My guys drove down those roads all the time, and you found all those bombs that saved our lives and so many lives.
Kept the supplies rolling. Kept the local populace safe.
You know how much credit and glory those guys get? None.
Not a lot.
None. And there was in Ramadi there would be the big vehicle like a Buffalo. You know, Buffalo is like a giant MRAP. You have to climb a ladder to get into it. So there'd be guys in there that would disable the bombs from inside. They had a big robotic arm, and they would do that. But behind them would be a contingent of Marines in Humvees. And I'd say, what are you guys? Oh, yeah, we're just support. I'm like, oh, get some. Devil dogs. Marine Corps doesn't play around. They're like, oh, you need support? Cool. We'll just get in Humvees and roll behind it. But there's going to be big bombs blowing up. Yeah, we're in the Marine Corps.
Yeah.
No factor. We'll deal with it.
I love Marines.